They rise from the underbelly of the industrial city in decay. And what surface similarities there are between these kids and any kids you've encountered would vanish if you tracked them back into their home neighborhoods.
The neighborhood is New York's Upper West Side, on the edge of Harlem. The kids are students at Booker T. Washington Junior High. Their test scores fail to meet most of New York City's minimum standards for education. But one teacher here is not concerned about test scores.
There are a lot of very fine first-rate minds in here, but by my experience in this building, none of you have ever been taught the tools by which your mind can work easier on the information that you get from the outside world.
John Gatto teaches 8th graders. Though he's been teaching in New York City schools for 28 years, he doesn't like schools, grades, or classroom tests. He's a different kind of educator.
We concentrate on ideas and the structure of how people think. So memorizing things and writing it down on a test never happens in here at all. It doesn't happen once. You may have tests, but they won't have anything to do with paper and pencil. And just remember, a few minutes ago I said the play Julius Caesar is one of the important works of literature in the Western world. But if you don't remember a thing about Julius Caesar, and you begin to understand how to use these tools, you will have taken a giant step forward to being a powerful, independent human being. So let's very quickly... I came as an Ivy League graduate to grace the hallways of these shabby institutions, and then I was going to pass on and make a fortune somewhere else there. What I discovered was, in spite of myself, that from the unlikeliest raw material, if I was willing to listen, there would come this sharp flash of insight that was unmistakably genius. It would only come once, maybe only once in the whole year, maybe once in a month from one kid. Why would anyone want to know that? That sounds like a dumb thing to learn, doesn't it? Why?
What's the most important part of the play?
If the most important part of the play isn't in the long scenes, then Shakespeare was a bum as a playwright. That was discovered by a...
I'm used to, okay, read pages 1 through 3 and memorize it and do the test. He teaches you how to use hypotheses, you know, and make an analysis.
He teaches us the curriculum, what we need to pass the grade. Then what he'll think that we'll need later in our lives.
Now, suppose you're going to Harvard University and you got to read 3 of these plays a week.
Gatto thinks a lot about the rest of their lives and how to prepare them for it. What they learn in school, he says, has little to do with life, so grades and academic tests cannot measure their ability to succeed.
The paper and pencil tests are, by themselves, some Frankenstein monster we've created. There's no complex task that will allow itself to be reduced to the particles of fill-ins or multiple choice or true-false questions. None. He looks his friend in the eye and he says, "And you too, Brutus?" This is it in Latin. I don't teach the kids that education's bad. I say that schooling's bad. Education is a personal thing. You develop your powers and your singularities to the utmost. But schooling is not education. Schooling's an attempt to write the one right way for everybody. And in that sense, it's an evil thing because there's infinite variation in humanity. Confining people in rooms and monitoring every minute of their lives in those rooms couldn't possibly fit into any definition of education that's come from any corner of the world. None. I'm going to give you each a copy of this thing.
Gatto works hard finding ways to get students out of school. He teaches in the classroom because he has to. But his real curriculum is a combination of independent study, class field projects, community service, and apprenticeships. Because he says only in real-life experiences can students teach themselves and test themselves.
You can't really be taught you gotta teach yourself. He can only open the door for you, and you gotta learn what you want to learn. That's how it should be.
What would you personally expect to get out of studying independently? What would you be out to get for yourself? You would be your own teacher, and the curriculum would be a curriculum you write yourself.
In those 37 weeks, I would try to use it to get to know what I like to study, and time to myself to know who I am and what I like to do with my future.
Every great system of philosophy this world has ever known has ultimately come down to self-knowledge as the key to the good life. Self-knowledge requires large periods of privacy, time spent testing who you are and what your limits are. This can't take place while someone's filling your time with orders or tests or wonderful activities. So I'm really trying to hand them back their lives, and I'm trying to make myself available to them as a resource. All you need to do to get treated with respect by anyone in the city who's really worth spending time with is to show by your attitude that you're serious about your work. You don't have to show.
Gatto is giving these 13-year-olds license to spend every Friday out of school. The student, a parent or guardian, and Gatto sign a contract that explains why the student is not in school. Raymond Jimenez is planning an independent project in commercial art.
Do you have any background in art at all, or what is? I know you have some. So what is it?
Background in art.
Commercial art. The idea of making images and possibly making a living out of it.
You if you remember, last year you gave a class about the way you advertise things, and I found that interesting. So I started looking at magazines, and I think I have it pretty much down how to make images for people. I might not be an artist, but I think I can make a pretty good image.
Well, I would expect that some part of the study will involve you looking into the psychology of commercial art. All right,
to do independent study, the students have to agree to several conditions.
Okay, look at number 3. That I will write a brief account of each independent day's work and events. I don't want a paper, I don't want a book. I basically want a little diary entry saying, here's what I tried to pull off today and whether it worked or not. The best projects are ones where 19 out of 20 things don't work because you're really putting yourself at risk. You're going for some big picture that you guess might exist, and the 20th one that scores for you makes all the other 19 worthwhile. Okay. Now, if you agree to those 4 conditions in the middle of the page, sign your names right now and date it. And if you don't agree, talk to me about any one of these that you don't have a question about, that you may have a question about.
Okay, so how about if you just want to think about it a little more?
You can take 2 or 3 sessions to think about it. One of the worst things about these schools is they don't ever give kids time, private time, to think about what they want to do. I don't know of another. I measure the success the same way you or the world would measure the success, by their performance. If someone can look me in the eye without shifting their gaze and tell me what they want and then persuade me in a convincing way, then they're certainly a good public speaker. Because of the difference in our ages, the difference in our culture. If they can move and swim like some noble fish through all environments and not be fearful or not carry a bubble of their own narrow past experience with them, then they're ready for a good, full life. Thursday and Friday are holidays.
For World Monitor, I'm Ann Collier in New York City.
I'm going to Cape Cod and then Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so if any of you want to ride along with me, hey, come ahead.
It's 7 a.m. on the west side of Manhattan, outside Booker T. Washington Junior High. 2 students are here early because it's Friday, and they're in Mr. Gatto's class. Fridays are when his students go about learning in some unusual places. Today, Francisco Posad is being sent to the principal's office.
At the end of the day, you should know how a principal thinks. Does that make some sense to you? There used to be a great general named Napoleon who said that a private soldier ought to carry a general's, field marshal's baton in his pack. He meant that everybody ought to be ready to assume command. But to do that, you have to know what the habits of command are.
Longtime 8th grade teacher John Gatto is outside the classroom today because that's where he'd rather be. It's where he says the best teaching takes place. Right now, he's preparing Francisco for a day of apprenticeship.
So keep your eyes and ears open. Lend him a willing pair of hands. Let him see that you're ready to work in exchange for what he's going to teach you. But ask questions, okay?
Gatto apprentices students to professionals regularly because he says first-hand experience is the only way a student can really learn.
That was about programming. Mr. Glassman's making coverages. Someone just called on the intercom. Okay, now, did you hear that buzz? The first 3 lines on the left are outside calls for the school numbers, but those are picked up by the secretary. The last line is called the principal's private line. Now, that's a really big shot, right?
They don't really know what the world of work is, and I don't think we've ever had a generation so remote and alienated from making the world work. I apprentice them to people who are doing real things, and I tell the people, don't be nice to the kid, tell the kid how you think.
Now, how many of you have ever been in an 18-wheeler or a big tractor-trailer truck? Anyone? You have?
Ron Hitchon, owner of a trucking company in Secaucus, New Jersey, has 4 apprentices from Mr. Gatto's class today.
Some of our customers that we ship to are Sears Roebuck. Have you ever heard of Sears?
Yes.
How about Wallet?
This is the 2nd year Hitchon has taken John Gatto's apprentices.
And you're going to go down to the port in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and see how we pick up merchandise to ship to other parts of the country.
John asked me if I would get interested in his concepts of education, and I agree with them. I think they're sound. I think that the best way to learn is to have these life experiences, and the more you have, and the more constructive ones you have, the better able you'll be able to become an independent person in society.
What are you going to do when you get older?
Go to law school.
All right, good for you. How about you, Stanley?
Air Force pilot.
An Air Force pilot? That's good.
Of course they need the basics. We all need them. And the basics are generally compressed into reading, writing, and arithmetic. They need to test the basics on reality. They can't test the basics in endless abstraction, in endless blackboard work.
All right, ask away. What do you want to know?
Do you like driving a truck?
Not this one. I want to drive something like that over there with a sleeper in the back and go over the road far, California and stuff like that.
You have to be big to drive a truck.
Huh?
You have to be kind of on a tall, big side.
Why? No, you don't. There's a lot of women drive trucks. I'm surprised how many you see, Cement trucks, dump trucks, everything.
If you were married and your wife drove a truck, would you mind?
Would I marry her?
Would you mind?
Oh, would I mind? Yeah, why not? She's working, right? That sounds good.
What are you learning about making a living?
That it's not easy at all. That you have to really be out there. So you gotta know people and stuff like that.
That's a whole lot.
What are you going to do when you get older?
Go to law school.
All right, good for you. How about you, Stanley?
Air Force pilot.
An Air Force pilot? That's good.
The truth is, I believe the word adolescence, teenage, these are junk words. Anything that goes on in the world of any sophistication is accessible to a 13-year-old mind.
Aisha and Nubia, this is Joanne. Joanne's going to show you.
Here, these 13-year-olds are learning freight consolidation, how merchandise moves through the company's warehouse.
Okay. So you go and you ask any questions you want. Okay.
In that school, we're the only kids with resumes in, the 8th grade now. And I don't think, and Mr. Gatto lets us out. He don't just keep us bundled up. He don't tell us we got to do this, we got to do that. He let us pick our own subjects and everything else. I started learning stuff that I never learned before.
While some of Gatto's students do apprenticeships on Fridays, others do community service. Today, for example, in a local soup kitchen.
We've turned our children into parasites. That's an ugly word, but it's absolutely true. By reserving them into schoolrooms and having them think that they have nothing to give back to the world at all for 18 years. Volunteer service teaches you not to be a parasite. It gives you hands-on experience with compassion. It also gives you something that kids can't get any other way. At least most kids can't get any other way. It gives you real responsibility. To do your homework is a fake responsibility.
I like that he teaches us useful things and not just writing notes on the board that we just copy and it's just wasting our time.
We should know how the world is, so when we get out there, we know stuff.
I would test whether they can be responsible by giving them a responsibility. For example, running the homeless soup kitchen, which none of my kids do, and if in fact they can do that without fear, contempt, or mockery of the lives that are more unfortunate than their own, then what they've proven is that they can accept responsibility responsibly.
Y'all need anything else?
Doing this, Gatto says, is far more important than passing any test in a classroom. For World Monitor, I'm Ann Collier in New York City.
Sit on the way.
But let me give you a second hypothesis, and then a third, and then what marks the urban experience for 10 or 15 years has been a tremendous disintegration of ties so that they're not close to themselves, they're not close to each other. In the school that class exists in, 84% of the kids don't have two parents. And about 30% of them don't have any parents at all. They live with an aunt or a grandparent or someone else.
For more than 20 years, 8th grade teacher John Gatto has been trying to compensate for what is missing in his students' lives.
I came as an Ivy League graduate to grace the hallways of these shabby institutions, and then I was going to pass on and make a fortune somewhere else. Just a little... What I discovered was, in spite of myself, that from the unlikeliest raw material, if I was willing to listen, there would come this sharp flash of insight that was unmistakably genius. It would only come once, maybe only once in the whole year, maybe once in a month from one kid.
Wesley Stevens might be that one kid this month.
Is that your character, the Crusher, or is that someone else's character that you drew?
Well, it's mine, right?
Okay.
But I got the shape of the body.
He's one of several boys putting together a comic book company as part of the alternative curriculum Gatto uses to help students break out of what he calls the programmed environment of school.
What we're aiming for, I hope, is the actual production of a comic book that can be distributed. Well, you can use that one issue to get you in. I think I can get you an interview at Marvel Comics to talk about the idea. What are you working on right now in terms of...
I'm working on art. I'm just like trying to find out what would really fit a comic book real good. Not just like somebody that would make everybody laugh, but, you know, make them want to read it. And, you know, like, get the
Loyalty.
feeling like, yeah, like they really there.
Yeah.
Like they in the comic book. Like, say, Crusher. Like him. Say,
Like many of Gatto's students, Wesley comes from a rough neighborhood.
Wesley was introduced to me because he was absent for 4 of the first 5 days. He was assigned to me, and he said, I have to testify in a murder trial. He says, I'm really worried because I'm afraid they'll come and get me or get my family, but they're always shooting somebody on the street outside, and I saw the last one. I'm going to ask you, what particular aspect of you, is this yours?
Yes. When he teach, he makes, you know, teaching a way kind of fun. And when he teach, I learned some stuff.
What this is a collection.
Gatto teaches his students to question what they're taught in school, including the importance of grades and test scores. Many of his students score well below their grade level on standardized tests.
The control mechanism that's imposed on schooling by these nationwide examinations is horrific. What school does, and it does it superbly well, is that it surveys for 12 years a kid's inclination to deviate. If the those inclinations are inscribed on the record from 1st grade through 12th grade, if those inclinations are sufficiently serious, then 3/4 or 4/5 or 9/10 of the doors in society close to that person. And if you tell people often enough that they're down here on the bell curve, they'll imprison themselves. We just talked about getting you an audience and getting you some staging area.
For their independent project, these girls are planning a fashion show to be held later this year in a hospital or nursing home. So his students can work on unconventional projects like these, Gatto sometimes pulls them out of other teachers' classes, and that can be a problem.
A lot of teachers, like today, some of our teachers be mad because they be like, you missing our work and you're doing all his work.
John Gatto freely admits he's out to sabotage the system. This poster outside of his classroom has the message, how to de-emphasize schooling as an institution. That approach has not made him popular among some of his fellow teachers.
Many people don't appreciate what he does. His philosophies are diametrically opposed to what they think educationally and what they do.
As the school's principal, Jules Linden often finds himself mediating between Gatto and other teachers who are unwilling to be interviewed about their conflicts with Gatto.
I love what he does. Sometimes I'm not ecstatic how he goes about doing it. See, John would like to destroy the entire system, but he really has nothing to take its place. And as bad as the system is, it's better than chaos.
Well, how would that help you? Tell me. Teach me about a fashion show. If you had both. Anybody can do this. It doesn't require charisma or talent. It simply requires understanding what people need. It's like feeding somebody. Anybody can feed somebody as long as they know what food is. Or any other. It's really letting kids teach themselves. Yes, sir.
Me and Victor always wanted to like establish ourselves as our own company instead of getting.
These kids have gone from being people who sat waiting for my instructions to people who give themselves their own instructions. They see themselves now, to some extent, as independent of the school's evaluation of them and measures of their own worth, their own self-critics. I think there have been grand successes that they've earned for themselves.
Wilma Amaro is what Gatto calls a grand success. Last spring, she spoke at a United Nations Youth Conference on the environment.
My name is Wilma Amaro. I'm 13 years old. I live in New York City.
She talked about water pollution, and she apologized for when bottles launched for a class science project washed up on a New Jersey beach.
My legs are full of acid, and I drink...
Gatto doesn't keep records of his students' successes, but of the 3,000 students he's taught, he says about 500 have come back to see him. Among these, there are former high school valedictorians, authors, entrepreneurs, filmmakers, and New York City teachers.
Thank you.
Gatto says it's the less obvious accomplishments that he prizes the most.
I was always pretty much independent, but I would never put on a more serious face around people. I would just always be more joking and not doing the right thing. Not to say doing the wrong thing, not doing the right thing. But I have learned to be more control of myself when I am doing independent work.
Well, one time I wasn't reading so well. He told me every night. He even stuck a book out for me. It was very nice for me to read, and I understand it. It taught me, like, everything of reading. I learned more better. I might not understand wrong words when I see them at first, but after I see them for a while, I understand it, and I know what it means. So he taught me kind of a lot.
These 8th graders are different from those in the past, facing different pressures at home, in the streets, at school. But Gatto says they can always learn to question what they're told, to respect themselves, and to reach beyond the limits that school imposes. For World Monitor, I'm Ann Collier in New York City.